You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
This is the Hammock Hangers Podcast, where we hang out and talk about everything from hammocks and hammock camping to the group hangs from around the country. Welcome back, everyone, to yet another episode of the Hammock Hangers Podcast. I am your host, Paul Collins, or also known as Skunk Ape. This week, we have a very special guest join us. Most of you probably already know of him, and the ones that don't probably should. He is a former Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey circus clown. He has been a camper and backpacker his whole life, and in 2007, he started making YouTube videos to help explain camping hammocks to folks that were struggling a bit with all of the components and skills to achieve a good hang. He now has over 600 videos and 109,000 subscribers to his channel. So let's go ahead and get on with the show, because woo, buddy, is it going to be a good one. All right, everybody, we are back with our guest today. Our guest is Shug Emery. He should actually need no introduction. I'm sure most everybody has seen his videos, or at least been directed to his videos if you're getting into hammock camping. So, Shug, welcome to the podcast.
Good to be taking a Saturday and sitting down talking about a subject that I love.
Oh, yeah. I love talking about hammocks myself. So let's jump right into it and let us know, the when, why, and how you got into hammock camping.
The main reason, and I forget this sometimes, but I was going through my ultra lightweight stage in backpacking and camping with just a tarp and lightweight sleeping bag, always bringing, I bring like a 40-degree bag when it was going to be 15 degrees, trying to save all these ounces and grams. And I was doing that thing where I was waking up in the middle of the night, doing sit-ups to get warm, and waking up at 4:30 and just walking circles around camp to warm up. And, I was very proud of myself for going through that process, because you strip down all your old gear. And I really started wanting a more comfortable coffee experience in the morning. And I had this, I still have it. It's a Henry Shire's Contrail one-man tarp tent. A really little sloped thing, just enough room to sleep in. And I was laying in that thing one morning. It's about 5:30 in the morning. Sun was just coming up. And one thing I always like doing, because I'm the Lord of Lollygag, is just laying in the morning and enjoying my coffee while I'm still wrapped up in my sleeping bag. My legs are down in there. And I was kind of leaning on my arm with some stuff sacks kind of crammed up under my right arm. So my right elbow is on the, on the pad and on the ground. And I'm drinking my coffee and doing everything with my left hand. And this dead right hand that was numb was trying to hold things. And I was just said to myself, there has got to be a better way to enjoy my coffee in the morning, as opposed to actually getting up out of the bag and going and like sitting on a damp stump by a campfire I'm not going to light to have the coffee. And I had I did have a hammock at home. I had it was an old Lawson hammock that I had goofed around with for a while. And they have a kind of a spreader bar on both ends, fairly heavy hammock. I wouldn't call it a bridge hammock, because you're kind of laying flat like spreader bars. And I had used that on a couple of trips, really liked it. Kind of forgot about it for a while because, I deemed that weight too heavy in my little ultralight quest. So I came home, dug it back out, kind of fooling around with it, going, okay, you can't really settle in and have coffee in it. It's not that kind of hammock. So I went out and I bought an Eno at REI, and I brought it home for 2 days, and then I returned it. But I sort of sat in that Eno and went, oh, okay. Now this kind of hammock, I could sit back, I could raise my foot end up, sit back and enjoy my coffee while in my bag, because I hadn't even discovered top quilts yet, and sort of be in a really comfortable position, leaning down, picking up my coffee and just looking at the morning. And that moment that's when the game started for me.
Gotcha. So now most anybody that gets into hammock camping, they can go on the forums or whatever, and they start asking questions. And the number one answer that anybody ever gets is go to YouTube and watch Shug's videos. So everybody gets to watch your videos to learn, how to basically set up a hammock and all the ins and outs. How did you, learn about it? I mean, was it just trial and error for you, or?
It kind of was. It was a lot of trial and error, but of course, I went in and I did a Google search on camping hammocks because I'd put in hammocks and a lot of beach hammocks would come up, and I was going, no, these are camping hammocks, and I found Just Jeff's site, and he used to be a moderator on hammock forums, and his site is called tothewoods.net. Still a great site. He has tons of great info on there, how to make your own hammock. So I said, I'm going to make a simple hammock because that will, my philosophy is if I make something, then I kind of know what the design is, what's happening. And I was really surprised in making the actual hammock, how simple that was. Just kind of, sew the edges. That wasn't too hard. I had basic sewing skills. And then his way of whipping, he has kind of it's not the knot on the end. It's kind of the sort of,
the tassels.
It's a very simple
deal.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of flowers out. I still kind of like it. So I made one and just put some straps on it because, when I was starting in 2006, 2007, there weren't a lot of suspension options yet.
Right.
Not like today. And I strung it up and I went, hey, man, I get this. So you kind of lay on a diagonal, which I already knew from laying in a couple of Mayan type hammocks, so I didn't lay straight down the middle like a banana. So that gave me sort of a basic idea. And then I discovered hammock forums and that came up. And, that site was a totally different site in 2006, much smaller.
Right.
Not very many options or vendors. Underquilts were fairly unheard of. If you were going to have one, you were going to make one. There weren't people really making them. I'm not even sure. Maybe the Jacks from Jacks Are Better had them, but I made my first one. I made a couple. So my little quest started right there, and I just dove in. I was having a lot of fun with it, and it reinvigorated my backpacking because I enjoyed the ultralight, but I did miss a little bit of the comfort I had. I was going, okay, so I'm carrying a really light load, yet on one end, I'm kind of suffering. I'm always hungry. I'm having to do sit-ups to stay warm. I'm having to pace around like Midnight Express when I get up in the morning to warm my body. So where is the fine line? Where's the sweet spot between that? Between being ultralight and being more comfortable.
See, I think I've gotten to where the older I get, especially, I lean more towards comfort than the ultralight. Of course, I still want to be, light, but I'll take comfort any day. So what type of hammock do you prefer? Do you prefer a gathered end, bridge?
I do prefer that. I just find it's just the easiest to string up for me. And, getting back to that comfort is, I'm 64 now, but even back when I was starting, I was going with that coffee. I'm going, I want to be comfortable. And I realized that the hammocks, once I started using them, they gave me this consistency of sleep. Like I was, I wasn't leaning one way. I was pretty consistent every night. It just felt like it rehabbed my body through the night. I'd have those old man, little bit sore legs. I'd wake up feeling refreshed. I enjoyed all the modular bits and pieces about it when I was making it. So as I was going through that whole journey, and all I knew at the time was gathered end. I hadn't even really discovered that there were so-called bridge hammocks, not to mention the sort of 90-degree hammocks. And I made my buddy Hickory one, and I made my buddy Turk one, and made them both a tarp to send to them for a Christmas gift, to kind of reinvigorate, hopefully, their backpacking too, to get them kind of back into it. We're all becoming older men and different jobs. My timeline was different than theirs, but I was noticing, none of us seem to be backpacking as much as as we used to, and maybe this will kind of spur it on.
Gotcha. So did it help? Did it help them as well?
It did.
Okay.
We all went on a trip in the gorge. It was a very early hammock forums hang, and Turk actually came up and used his. And, he probably backpacks a little less than me and Hickory, but Hickory really got into his. And, when you have a good friend, like I can't teach him anything. I remember Stormcrow saying to me once going, you ought to go over there and tell Hickory how to lay in his hammock. Look, we grew up together. I can't tell him anything. And I've kind of learned in general with hammocks, I try not to go around unless someone asks me to come give them some tips about it at a hang. And that will happen to me. People go, hey, Shug, could you come check out my rig? And, and I usually go, and unless I see a glaring error, like their foot end is way too low or their hammock is sticking outside their tarp because they haven't centered their tarp, I will, or they actually say they're struggling with their underquilt, I'll help them right away. But usually my answer is kind of going, sleep the night, let's debrief in the morning, and tell me how you slept. And then we got somewhere to work from. Normally they come walking up and go, how'd you sleep? And they go, oh, okay. I go, your voice is mighty high. Well, my feet were cold a little. I go, okay, your feet were cold. We will start working there. There's a reason why.
Gotcha. So, do you have a favorite hammock setup that you use more than others?
No, I kind of play the field, Paul.
Okay.
I have a lot of hammocks, and I look at it like I've got a garage full of cars. I got the ones like my bridge hammock. I might take it out once or twice a year, so it's kind of like maybe my old classic '66 Falcon, sort of a Sunday driver.
Gotcha.
Just take it out.
Okay.
And my utility vehicle is my gathered end hammock, and the 90-degree hammocks like the Hammock Dremore, I will take that out once in a while. I find it fun. I use it in the backyard a lot if I have to sit down and make a bunch of phone calls, because I could string it up and sit up in chair mode and be really comfortable and sort of settled in there. But honestly, I don't mind the pad in it, but I really like an underquilt and not having to use a pad. So gathered end, it just seems easier to string up. I mainly lay on my back. I might sort of roll to my side for 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, when you're getting that little restless time going, I'm waking up, I'm hungry, but I don't want to get out of here yet. So I'm basically a back sleeper.
Gotcha. I think I sleep more on my back in my hammock as well. I think every once in a while I turn, but either way I'm comfortable.
Yeah, my turn is just a sort of a list. I don't really get absolutely fetal to the side. And I might do that in my regular bed for 5 or 10 minutes here or there. But once I'm in that hammock, I'm just comfortable and set, and I just lay there like a mummy.
Yeah, I actually sleep better in my hammock than I do in my bed. My wife and I even went out and bought some of the Tempur-Pedic mattresses with the adjustable bed frame and all that stuff. And I still sleep better in my hammock than I do in that thing.
I wonder if do you think, because I've thought of this, people go, well, why don't you sleep in a hammock at home? And I go, well, we have a nice Select Comfort, and I sleep very good in that Select Comfort, meaning I used to have a mattress years ago, and I would wake up with what I call bed back. I would just be a little bit kind of stiff, and as a circus performer and, worked my body pretty hard, and I would just feel a little bit in the middle of my back kind of stiff. And we went to the Select Comfort, and that went away. But I think for me, I like to save my hammock for backpacking because it makes it kind of fun and special.
Right.
I just think if I slept in one every night, my wife would never sleep in one. She feels kind of claustrophobic in them. And we do still like, laying in the same bed, going, "God, get your leg off me," and you snore like a dove. So I think I sleep better in it because I'm walking in the woods, I'm outside. And for me, and I explain this to a lot of people, when they ask me why I like solo camping, I go, well, one reason is it's a lot easier for me to film if I'm by myself, to film my trip. And if I go out there to do a little how-to or something, I don't feel like I'm putting anybody out by having to stop and film Number two is I feel very much at peace when I go out into the woods. So, you walk a day, put in some miles, crawl in that hammock early, and I just don't know what it is about the woods, but I just sleep so good.
Yeah. Yeah. I know where you're coming from with that.
I think most of us feel that way.
There's a peace out there that
there is.
I mean, it's amazing. So
not everybody feels that though. Most people are kind of scared. They're I don't know how you do it. And I go, maybe it's just, we all feel differently about different things. And I think it was kind of like, if you have the gift of feeling peaceful in the woods, then you're lucky.
Yeah. I know I do. I mean, I can go out there and just fall straight to sleep and not even wake up one time at night.
Yeah, man.
Now I know you like winter camping the best, right? From what I've seen from most of your videos, that's what it seems like.
Well, let me it's not that I like it the best, it's that I live in Minnesota.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
If I didn't take on winter camping, I wouldn't camp for half the year. Because it's a long winter here. Once it starts snowing and then it gets cold, it drags on into the beginning of May with still snow on the trail. So being a guy not from Minnesota, when you move to Minnesota, you try a little harder, and in my tent days, I went winter camping a few times, totally unprepared, and didn't have, me and Hickory did it. We were cold through the night, but we were good in the day. You were sleeping going, I'm not quite warm, but I'm not quite shivering.
Gotcha.
I could put up with this. And it was like alluding to the ultralight thing a while back, I tell anybody that goes, well, I'm very concerned about the weight of a hammock. I really want to use a hammock, but I've been an ultralighter all my life. I like my tarp and my bivy bag. And I go, okay, but do you want more comfort? I really do. I'm going, you can get a light hammock. And it also depends on the season. Summer, you don't have to carry as much insulation to wear to insulate yourself. And I'm going, you have to balance out your old gear with your new gear. Like you might have to buy a new pack. Weigh your pack empty. It might weigh 8 pounds. You can get a ULA pack that'll weigh under 2. You get, get a new sleeping bag or a new quilt. You just invest. You have to spend some money to get lighter. If you do, and it's just a fact. And I go, replace a few things. Pack your old synthetic sleeping bag from 1973, probably weighs 8 pounds,
right?
And it's this big, and that's a lot of weight. So yeah, but I'm going UL, but I don't think you are with that equipment. And they worry about adding that hammock in, and I go, well, then you're just going to have to come to a personal decision about comfort and maybe an extra pound. Fall, you're going to have to bring a little bit more stuff to keep you warm. Summer, no. And if you winter camp and you're going through the snow with snowshoes, that's going to require a different mode of transport with a pulk, a sled, and you definitely need stuff to keep you warmer. So to answer your question, I do it because I live in Minnesota, and I've learned to really enjoy it, but it's a lot of work. It's double the work of any other trip.
That's what I was going to ask you is, how you prepare for, camping in the cold. Because I mean, I'm here in Florida. So, I mean, our winter is, we might, if we're lucky, see, the upper 40s, lower 50s, So, I mean, I think I've only
Which is chilly,
Well, especially for down here, but as far as like, the real cold, weather, camping in the snow and stuff like that, how do you prepare for something like that?
You have to go out and, like I said earlier, go on a couple trips where you go, I don't feel like I really have warm enough stuff, and go and, you're right on the edge of going, man, it got down to like 15 degrees. You always know, like I've told people on winter hangs we've had here that I feel like came from other states and we're jumping in. I always send them a PM and go, don't forget, most people focus on their sleeping And, in the winter, it's dark back in the
Right.
woods at 4 o'clock. So your night starts early and, it's a long night of sleeping. But I go, don't miss the boat and not bring clothes to stand around in all day, plus your sleeping attire, whatever you do. And you have to kind of go out and sort of fail a little bit without, I always go, well, you won't die. If you're cold, get up and start the fire, put everything you have on, do jumping jacks, get yourself warm, hike back out to your car if you need to, but don't lay there and suffer. It's because that's not
Right.
smart in this weather. It's kill you weather. So, to this day, when I pack for one, when deep winter first comes, I go back and look at a couple of my own videos or look back on trips from last year going, what was I wearing when I was hiking? And what did I have on in camp? And I pretty much always know what I sleep in, but it's the sort of, okay, this trip was sort of like 2 degrees when I was hiking. I need to kind of see what I was wearing throughout the day. And you just kind of learn the hard way.
Okay.
It's taking care of your head, your feet, your hands, your neck, those areas to stay warm. Because if your feet are cold, boy, your trip is just never fun, and they never warm up.
That's the biggest thing that I always have issues with is my feet. So there's a lot of times I'll take my jacket or whatever I have and kind of wrap my feet with that, and then have that inside the, my quilt and everything, just to keep them warm.
Yeah, and the thing is, in Minnesota, I always tell people, I go, like I have mucklucks. I go, if you're crawling in that hammock and you're pretty warm everywhere, but your feet are like icy, you got to get those things warm before you crawl in the hammock because they will not warm up. So take a hike, do camp chores, but I go, nothing beats some jumping jacks and just, kind of jogging around camp a little bit, get that blood flow going. Don't be afraid to put a couple of pocket hand warmers in your boots, but they will not warm up no matter how good your bag is. And that's in the deep winter camping. So get those things where they're pretty warm. And, if you're going to do it over and over, invest in a pair of mucklucks or something. They're really not that expensive. No more than an underquilt.
Gotcha.
And if your feet are good, man, your whole day goes great.
So now you just said that about
seriously,
right? You just said that a minute ago. That you go back and watch some of your own videos and stuff like that to see what you were wearing and stuff like that. How did you start making the videos for hammock camping and stuff like that? What gave you that idea? I mean, where'd all that come from?
Well, I always, when I first got on hammock forums, I saw the trip report section and I would, I was really excited, like all new people getting into a hammock. And then you found this tribe of people that are into hammocks and you're learning from this site, on those first 5, 6, 7, probably 10 trips, I would just carry one of those disposable Instamatic cameras that you could just go to, any pharmacy and buy, any Walmart, and it took 27 pictures, so I'd take 27 pictures and then I would take them to get developed, and then have pictures, and I would write out a written report on hammock forums talking about my hillbilly pot and how much my pack weighed and what this weighed. And what I realized was these are people that actually care about the minutia of your trip, where your own family goes, hey, did you see a bear? Did you burn yourself? No. Okay. Discussion over. They really don't care about all that little stuff about your gear, how you set your tarp up, what the terrain was like. Nobody does, but they did on hammock forums. So I would take these pictures, and a buddy of mine who's a photographer would go, man, you take a pretty good picture. You frame up really well. He says, I got this Olympus waterproof camera I never use. I'm going to give it to you. And he gave it to me, and I took it on a trip, and I was so excited. Waterproof, I don't have to baby it. And then I was kind of looking at it going, oh, it has a video button. And I shot my first video. Well, we'll see how this goes. And I was and on that very first one, I went, woo, buddy, which I'd never said ever in my life, ever. You turn a camera on yourself, and if you're an entertainer, it's kind of like showtime. And I shot this video and put it out and just on hammock forums, and I'd ask my daughter, because when I did the video, I cut the video on iMovie, and asked Ariel, I want to put this video on this forum. How do I do that? What kind of file do I do? And she said, but Dad, you have to upload it, like go somewhere like YouTube and upload it, and then you get a link, and then you can insert that into that forum. So I use YouTube just as a thing to get a link to put on Hammock forums.
Okay.
So I was doing that with all my videos. It started out about 2007, and a guy asked me, he hasn't been on the forum for years, but he asked me, would you do a little instruction video? And so I started doing my 10-part series, and really, thinking back, the audience was just Hammock forums, is what I thought. So there's a lot of me clowning around. There's a lot of me in there, and I always tell people you can go past me if you want to get to the info. They go, well, why don't you just leave yourself out of it and do the info? And I go, well, then I'll never make the video because I have to have fun doing it. And I look back now and go, oh, there is a lot of me. I put a little less of that now, but what I didn't realize was the YouTube site was growing with those videos on there. And I never did that thing going, hey, make sure to give me a thumbs up and like me and hit that notification button and make sure to subscribe. I still don't, because I don't have the self-esteem to do that. Never did it.
I mean,
never will.
You've got over 109,000 subscribers to your channel. So, I mean, I don't think you really need to do that anyhow.
Without even trying. Oh, I was going to say, it started with this thing of I would see newer people coming on hammock forums, and they're really struggling with their hammock setup or perplexed by pads, and underquilts are real new. And I go, it's pretty intuitive for me. I'm not really that, academic of a guy. I just dive in and learn things. And if I haven't learned it in 2 years, I'm going, maybe this isn't my subject. But I found hammocks came fairly intuitively to me. And I thought I could help some of these people that are sort of struggling with suspension angles and just, they've never hung a tarp, and a tarp is its own art. And a lot of people have just set up a tent and a rain fly in their life and never dealt with a tarp. And if you're going to be a hammock camper, you've got to learn the tarp life.
Right.
And there is something to it. So it was really just to have fun and kind of do some infotainment and help people out.
Gotcha. Well,
so that was where it really started, right there.
Well, I know in at the end of 2011, I was planning for my 2012 Appalachian Trail through hike, and that's when I stumbled across hammocks, because I was actually looking for just like a little one-man bivvy. I didn't even know there was a such thing as a camping hammock, and so then I came across the Clark hammock, and then I came across the Hammock forum, and then of course got pointed to your videos and learned a lot, from watching them. I sat there and binge watched them. And then I even reached out to you with a couple of questions on there, and you answered them and all that. So
I do always try to answer people. If they take the time to ask, you should give an answer. That's the way I've always felt.
But
or just say you don't know. I don't know on that one. If they ask me like, what kind of hammock should I get? And I just got this. I'm going, I don't know. You're going to have to. I can kind of tell you where to start, but that's like asking me what kind of car to buy or what kind of shoes to buy. That you can't shortcut a little bit of research. You got to kind of dive in and make a couple of mistakes. So I never tell anybody, make sure to get a Superior gear or get a war bonnet. I don't. I go, here's some options. And then what I do is I send them a bunch of videos to watch, going, watch them or not. But I'm not going to type a bunch of stuff out for you.
So now I heard a minute ago, you said that your first video, you started off with the woo buddy. Your other catchphrase that you have, all secure in Sector 7. Where did that come from?
That came, I could find the video. It's way back. I would just pop up at the end and do all this outtakes, and I just popped up and went, all secure in Sector 7. And it wasn't from Lost in Space. A few people have told me that it might be from Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story. And I watched that, but I don't recall him saying Sector 7 and me going, I'm going to use that. It's just info that's just floating around in your brain. I must have heard it somewhere, and I just thought it sounded cool. It's a little bit of a alliteration. Sector 7, I could have said Sector 13, but it just sort of stuck. So I've told people, I get a lot of people that still ask me, where is Sector 7, this sector you talk about? And I always go, 200 feet around me, wherever I am.
There you go.
Sector 7's movable. It goes with me. So, yeah, it's, you start shooting video, and if you're, made my life as a circus clown and then went into performing as a comedy juggler. So anytime you kind of have an audience, and the camera is an audience, it's like when I turn it on to the morning to this day when I'm out on a trip and I'm having my Medaglia d'Oro instant espresso from the hammock, and I turn that camera on, it's almost like a little light goes off that goes on air. Eventually you're going to upload that, and it truly feels like you're talking to the world in those moments.
Right.
And I'm having a conversation.
So
maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know, but that's how it feels.
So with you being a performer, I'm sure that has helped with the comfort of being able to speak on camera and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've done commercials and film work, and
okay.
Yeah, it does. I've even done a little series about, people would reach out to me, particularly back in the days when on YouTube you could send a private message to someone, and they would ask me, they're getting started on their site and would ask me tips about cameras. And the thing I would always tell people is what I think is the most important is to just be yourself. Don't be me. And, if you happen to be someone that's very soft-spoken and dry, just be that. But I said, I like when eye contact is made with me. So I try to remind myself to look into the lens of the camera. So if you have one of those little windows that comes out, don't look at that. You can see it. That's just to get yourself framed up. But don't look at that. Don't look at you. Look into that lens. Because in film work or commercials, there's times when they ask you to look off the lens like you're talking to someone else, but a lot of times you have to play right into it.
Gotcha.
So I just look into it because I felt like people have told me, they go, I feel like I'm there with you. Because if I'm constantly talking to you like this and I'm never looking at you, whenever somebody does that in a video, I'm always going, come on, man, look at me, man. And I'll find myself after a while kind of clicking it off because I'm going, they're looking at themselves.
Right.
So I think maybe, and just, of course, when I do look at some of the old ones, I'm going, I really did clown it up. But as time has gone on, I've been at this 15 years now, and you have to listen to your viewers. Just save little moments. You don't have to be a clown all the time. Get the info. But I have been talking about this on a couple of other podcasts and to people recently that one of the new things people want in life is they kind of want to get to know you as you, not Shug, but the Shug that could just lay there and be, that huffs and puffs on the trail, or is a little bit more, I'm trying to think of the right word, not honest, because I always feel like I'm honest because that is me, but a little bit like you're really sitting there talking to a friend and you're not playing it up.
Gotcha.
And people have said that to me. I like this side of you when you're just sort of being a little bit, I was going to say demure. Oh, hello. It's not demure, but just sort of taking it down to a real level. It's kind of like that feeling when you first hit the trail in the woods. You just step onto that trailhead, and I'm guilty of always coming out of the box a little too hot. You're excited. The drive is taking you too long. It's taking you too long to get ready, and you're burning down the trail. And it's like, dude, just slow it down, man. You're going to be here for a while. Just ease in. And as the trip goes on for a couple of days, you find yourself just sort of, yeah. And I see that in myself on video sometimes going, oh, I'm settling in, but I've set it up to where if I stay totally kind of like real and light, then people will put in the comments, are you feeling okay? Is everything all right? So
everybody's
I've created
used to
this
your original videos. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a fine line you have to play of going, no, I still got the spunk, but you got to realize within 14, 15 years, I'm absolutely going to change. Sure. I'm 64 now. I was probably, 14 years ago, I was 50, or I was probably 49 when I started. Just a young punk. so weird to say that. Going, so of course you're going to kind of change through the whole thing.
Right. Right. So
yeah, it's just part of it.
Awesome. So, all right, I want to get your top 3 tips that you would give somebody that's just starting out into hammock camping.
Okay. And I was just telling someone this. In fact, I made a video called The Hammock Learning Curve, just kind of address this. And I went out in the backyard and I said, I'm just going to start spouting. And as I was making this video, I realized, wow, there are so many little bits and pieces of just your hammock setup. And that's just what you're going to sleep in, you know, plus your tarp, plus your pack, plus your food, plus your clothes, plus your boots, plus your trip planning, plus your transportation there, how you choose a trail, you know, so many things. So what I see a lot is, and I'll often advise people that I see struggling with this, go, you know, and honestly, it's more, I would say, men than women, but men that are in their mid-40s up. This is just generalization that I have, that they want to get everything perfect. Like they haven't camped since they were in Boy Scouts or maybe in college. And now they see me doing it and they're going, well, you can do it. I can do it. I'm going, absolutely. It's like, don't try to get it perfect. You know, just go. Because I see these people that want every one of these little systems perfect before they go. And I go, that will never happen. So make sure you have your spoon because you're not borrowing mine and you're going to have to carve one.
Right.
And make sure you're not going to die if you're just going out in decent weather and you're going to camp. So it's really easy to note everything you do wrong. So I always go, note the things you do right. You didn't die. If you got blisters, why? If you had an uncomfortable night in your hammock and it was your first trip, well, there's a lot of things to that. People feel exposed. You may not have got your setup quite right yet. It's going to take some time. So my first piece of advice is if you're planning a backpacking trip, you don't even have to make a written list. You know where you're going. If you could think ahead and kind of look at your trail terrain, you look at your pack, just go, I have my spoon, I have some food, my sleeping stuff, I have my shelter. Here we go. And just go. And that's going to teach you so much. That's going to get you there. That's the first thing. Number 2 would be, just when it comes to hammocks specifically, is be patient. You know, we've all seen this on hammock forums, and maybe you and I both have experienced it ourselves, where you want to get everything as you go along. Okay, I've got my hammock now. Now I've got to learn to hang it right. Now I've got to get my insulation. Okay, now do I want a ridge line or not? And now how do I get in and out of it? How do I want to add some sag? Oh, I got a tarp! You know, you start just panicking with all the things. And it's like, just learn to hang the hammock properly. That way you can lay in it and feel good. You don't need a ridge line. If it feels good right away, go with it. Later you might go, I don't know where to put my stuff in a tent. I can just lay it on the ground, man. And maybe I'll add a ridge line and hang it over. And I've done videos on that. And you know, everybody has their system. There's the very fastidious people that want everything really, they don't want anything touching the ground. Me, I go, my stuff's kind of on the ground by me. It's under my tarp. It's on a piece of plastic. Things on my ridge line. I'm kind of a pig, but you know, that's just how I've always camped. So on that, it's just like, be very patient with your hammock journey and take one component at a time, you know, and eventually you're there. Number 3, you know, I don't know what that is, but just kind of grow into it. You know, when you're young, head down, burning miles. Tut, 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 tut. I used to do that. You're not seeing anything.
Right.
Good. That's going to change one day.
Yep.
You know, you're going to naturally start slowing down as you age. And I'll tell you this, man, starting to film trips, when I started taking a camera, and even if you just decide I'm going to take my cell phone and I'm going to just try to take 40 photographs while I'm out. I've often told people since I started filming, it's changed the way I look at trips. So if I'm hiking along and I pass by something like a mushroom on the ground or I don't know, an interesting tree or a knot on a tree, or just what I call the B-roll stuff. And I'll think, I should have filmed that. I stop myself. I go back, get the camera out, and I spend a couple of minutes filming it from every angle. Then I'm really looking at it, enjoying it. But the gift I get out of it is what I call the regard moment afterwards. So I've regarded this one thing, whether it's just a piece of flapping birch bark on a tree. I'm really looking at it through the lens going, man, there's a lot going on in there, with that piece of bark. There's colors, textures, little flappy things sticking up. There's a lot. It's when I put the camera away and I'm just standing there. And a lot of times for these little B-roll things, it's not a place. It's not like you're getting to an overlook, or it's not a riverbank. It's not a stream. It's not a beaver bog. It's just the woods. And you go, I bet not that many people stop right here.
Right.
And just, I'm in the woods. And you listen to the wind in the top of the trees, or a couple times I could hear rain coming through the woods at me. It hadn't got to me yet, but you hear it. And just, it might be 20 seconds. There might be time I drop my pack once in a while and sit down for 5 minutes going, it's actually really a cool spot along the trail. So that's kind of the gift I've gotten. And I guess number 3 would be aware of those moments as you go on. It's not always the big views. Sometimes it's just stopping somewhere that you wouldn't stop. Maybe you got to just tie your bootlace and just take a moment and go, I'm in the woods, or I'm in the desert, or it's not a destination point, and just enjoy that moment. Regard that moment and be happy you're out there. Because I think we're in a rush world. I am.
Yes.
I always have a sense of urgency. So it's just like, do not be afraid to be in it for a minute.
I think that's what I like about going out into the woods as much as I do. To actually get away from the hustle and bustle and actually enjoy and take in all that you was just talking about.
Oh, you're so right. This thing comes up sometimes where people ask me if I'm a survivalist, and I go, no, it's all in my backpack. Or, hey, you passed that mushroom, why didn't you eat it? I got food in my pack. I'm not really a bushcrafter. I'm the lowest form. I'm just a backpacker. I put it all in there at home and I go. I want to do as little work as possible. And there's already a lot of work to backpacking, because I took a trip, it was like a week and a half ago. People go, did you have fun? I go, fun is not the word. I used to think fun was the word. Fun is a roller coaster. Backpacking to me is self-reliance, escapism, and like what you were just saying, if I was a survivalist, I feel more like I have to survive in my day-to-day life. But when I go to the woods, it's animals. Yes, sure, nature can kill you, but I don't walk in the woods with a chip on my shoulder. And I've often told people, I said, I don't hike with worry. And by that I mean, is there a bear? Is there a cougar? Or like you in Florida, is there a giant spider and an alligator? Or, some of the horrible bugs. Is there a 2-foot water bug? It's like, no, of course they're going to be out there. You're walking into their neighborhood. So I say, I stay vigilant for signs of animals, but I don't freak out. What about man? What about the murdering axe murderer? I go, I guess if I got killed by an axe murderer on the trail, he had to work pretty hard to get there and get me. I got to give him credit for that, but I can't worry about it.
You probably have to worry more about that going to your local Walmart anyhow than going out into the woods.
Exactly, or just at home, just home invasion.
Yep.
So I've broken it down to this analogy. I said, it's like piloting a pontoon boat. I used to have a pontoon boat. Your friends all come over. I have my captain's hat. I'm driving the boat. They're all drinking beer and wine and smoking. And, the captain, you're driving the boat. You look like you're having fun up there, but you're constantly, without getting all excited, you're looking for you got a sailboat out here. I got to give them right away. Here comes a jet skier. Let me keep my eye on them. Just, you're vigilant without being nervous. But you're constantly scanning. But your head's not on a swivel. You can turn back and look at everybody and talk. And I feel like that's what the backpacking life is. Just kind of just look at the sky, look at the weather, look at the trees before you hang. If you see a bear poop and it's pretty fresh, you go, yes, they walk on trails just like us. Bear probably doesn't want to see me. Hang your food. it's about, I always sort of, in my Sector 7 where I'm camping, I always walk the perimeter of the camp and I look for, or anywhere I could go, going, if the weather gets really severe, tornadoes, which we have in Minnesota, or really scary storms, I can get out of my hammock, put on my rain gear, and go hunker down over here. And I'll bring a saw with me. But this will be my safest option. And I just go, that's just what we did in Scouts. It's like that could be a bail point. Because, if it really, really, really got severe, may not work, but rather than just laying in my hammock going, I hope things don't fall on me. Well, they might. And the lightning's cracking right next to you. So maybe you just need to grab a pad, go squat down, put on your rain gear, and maybe you're going to have a soggy half hour, but big storms never last long. So it's kind of just that, just being aware, but you're never going to learn it unless you go and fail. But like I said, make note of what you do right.
There you go.
As much as what you do wrong.
Exactly.
It is hammocks are coming on, and like I realize in the world of hammocking, like my nephew, he's what you call a mocker. And I could tell when I see like a college kid get in a hammock and they lay like a banana.
Right.
Well, they're bringing their laptop in to do their work. They're hanging out on the quad. They're not putting a tarp up or an underquilt. They're kind of hoping their buddy or their girlfriend or their significant other or whatever it may be comes over and sits with them side by side. They're grooving. They're not spending the night out in their hammock. They're rigging it up for a few hours of, hey, man, we're chilling. I ain't chilling, bro. I'm sleeping.
Exactly.
It's like guys like you and me. So we're going out to actually use it as a shelter and sleep system in the woods for whether it's a one nighter or longer than that. So there are these little divisions in there of hammocking, and it is quite popular now. But I don't think it'll ever replace tents because I think it's just too busy for some people. It's too much to it when they can just throw their tent down, throw their pad in, be done. And that's cool, man. I mean, we can't all be hammockers. And I think it does take takes a certain personality to be one. Oh, here's my thought on that. If you got a minute.
Yeah.
I've often thought hammockers are probably some level of introverts at heart because, I know so many people, they want to, what do you mean I'm going to sleep alone? I'm not going to be in the tent right next to you, shoulder to shoulder. Like most people like that comfort of being in there where a hammocker kind of wants to, I'll hang with you by the fire. But when it's sleepy time, I'm heading on over in my own little world. And
that is true.
I think so. You see the couples that sleep side by side, that might bridge the gap a little bit. But I think in general, the average hammocker, and maybe tell me if this works for you. If I'm camping with a lot of people, I love when I'm going to go to sleep. And I always go on the perimeter of the site, wherever we're going to go, have my own little place. I love those people. But now I got a little elbow room. I can do a little recording in the moment without being right next to them. And if I am right next to some of my friends, sometimes like Hickory or Alex and Jonah or something, they're kind of used to it. I'll just kind of keep my voice down. But they don't care because I know them. But it's just that thing of going off into your own little sleep world. So I think we have to have that little bit of a touch of introvert in us to be able to really enjoy it.
I think you're right on that. I mean, I've never really thought about that. But, I mean, now that you mention it, I mean, I know I'm somewhat of an introvert myself. So,
and I am. People think I'm an extrovert, but it's like show people, most YouTube people that I've met, they're very introverted. And what we do is we have our connection with humanity over a video. I used to realize that when I did my shows, going, I can go on stage and have a connection with 500 people, me on stage by myself, them all in the audience. And I felt like I had a big connection with humanity, which would carry me for a while. And I'm just alone back in my dressing room, happy as can be. So I was kind of classified. I went through a year of psychotherapy once just to see if I was crazy. And I'm not. But he said, you're a spirited introvert. And I went, I like that. He says, you come in and you hit real hard and fast. You make a lot of noise, let everybody know you're there, and then you fade. And that's exactly what I do. And people think I was there longer than I was. It's just sort of a technique I developed. Let them see you, go around, talk to everybody. Hello, how are you? Who are you? And how'd you know the host? And what's your hammock? And then go on off for a little while and regroup. The only thing about hammock hangs, I always think, have you been to a hammock hang, like a hammock forum hang?
Well, I'm one of the organizers of HangCon down here in Florida. So
okay, all right. Okay, here's my tip to you, because I always say this at hangs here, going, the problem with these hammock hangs is we're away from our hammocks too much. There should be like at 1:30 a whistle blown. All right, everybody, to your hammocks for 45 minutes. Go futz with it. Go sleep in it. Go be in it. Because, you're down by the fire talking to everybody. You're going, man, I can't wait to get up in my little world of the hammock. And I know everybody's thinking the same thing. Good night, everybody. Love you. I got to go. And the minute you do this, the minute you finally go in for the night, you get your quilt pulled up and everything, you hear yourself just go, ah. And I've heard these ahs coming from other tarps. It's just this like, oh, yeah, I'm off my feet. I'm in the hammock. I'm just going to lay here, right out.
Right. Well, I know, when we're doing HangCon, myself and AJ, one of my friends, we do spend some time, talking to like a lot of the vendors and stuff like that. But when like AJ, whenever he's ready to take a nap, goes and gets in his hammock, he's gone. Whenever,
boom,
I usually end up falling asleep before, a bunch of others that, go and they hang out by the fire and, all that stuff. I get tired and I go and I'm in my hammock. I'm done until the next day,
Yeah.
So, but
yeah, I've often wondered at hammock hangs going, if we could come up with this rig that all the hammocks are in a circle back from the fire safely, where we can all kind of lay in our hammocks and talk.
Yeah, there you go.
While you're up, could you grab that for me? So it's kind of a fun thing. I always go, wow, all day I was on my feet out here talking too much and making food, because you just love seeing all the other people. If you just met them, they're only there because they love hammocks too. Right. It's like any little group like that, bluegrass or modeling or whatever the convention is, where people all have that interest. You just come together so quickly,
right?
As humans. And it's kind of like, because most of the talk is about hammocks and tarps and where we are, and it might, after you've been there a couple of days, roll off into other topics, but it's sort of that got us there. And but there's never enough hammock time. I told my daughter once, I said, we go through life and we create these blessings and curses for ourselves.
Right.
And one of mine is being on, or it might be for you. You're part of an organizing HangCon now, and no one that comes as a guest will really ever know the work involved.
Oh,
but
God, so
and you enjoy it for some reason, and you continue to do it, and it's your blessing and curse. It's like, maybe you're the guy that cooks really good shrimp, but it's always, we're going to bring it up there. He'll cook the shrimp. He's the best shrimp cooker. You're going, dude, I'm not. You always bring it to me to cook it. I get it done. But you cook the shrimp. You never overcook it. And it's like, there's a blessing and a curse right there, because you cooked it good once. From now on into perpetuity, that is your job.
That's it. So,
yeah, man.
All right. I appreciate you coming on and chatting, and anytime you want to come back on and just chat some more or whatever, just feel free to reach out and we'll definitely have you back on.
Well, I can always talk about hammocks, and I feel like on a podcast sometimes that someone was asking me this, if you do a video you have to be on camera, but if you're doing a podcast, I feel like you can talk about subjects and sometimes go into a little more depth, because people are generally listening to a podcast while they're driving or working or hiking or whatever, and they're listening and creating their own visuals in their heads, and sometimes I feel like it'd be worth just going over, like, okay, you just got a hammock. Where do you begin with that? Where do you hang it?
Right.
And from all those things to tree spacing and the proper trees. And as you know, like, I've had people go, well, I went out in the woods and I couldn't find any trees 12 to 15 feet. And you're going, that's just it's a general rule of thumb. You're gonna, like it's like after you've camped 8 days with your hammock, you could care less. You're hanging off. I mean, anything will work. Just
right.
as long as you're not on the ground. And it's like these are all just kind of rules of thumb. The tightness of the ridge line, and it may not be exactly 30 degrees every time. It's just a place to start. So you realize it's no fault of them. Some people are quite literal and they take it literally, and you have to realize we're just it's just the starting point, place to start. But if you could, I don't know, some people are visual learners, but it was just like, let's just go through that first hang, get that foot end up a little bit. And then of course you're going to find some people like their hammock high. I like mine so I can sit sideways with my feet on the ground. In that learning curve video, I just realized there is so much nuance in there in the hammock life that it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And like my buddy Hickory, he likes to lay like a banana. He lays straight, and I think it's because he's a contrarian. Somebody tells him to lay at an angle. No, man, I'm laying straight. Just because you told me to lay at an angle means I'm not. I didn't tell you. That's so how you get your flattest lay, but I'm not going to argue with you. It's just funny.
Right.
It's so much to it that it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, it is. Well, we will holler at you later then.
Well, thanks for having me. I'd like to sign off with this. Woo, buddy! All secured Sector 7! Pow!
Thanks, Shug, for taking the time to come on and chat with me for a while about hammocks. It was great to hear your story about how you got into hammock camping too. I myself want to give you a big thanks for doing what you do with all of your videos to help others out that are interested in hammocks. I know they sure helped me out when I was first getting started. I think I'm also going to have to make it a point to head up north at some point and try out winter camping for myself. Links to where you can find Shug's videos as well as more about him can be found in the show notes. Don't forget to check out all of the other podcast shows that are on the Hiking Radio Network as well. There is Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, the Trail Dames Podcast, and Hiking Unfiltered. And if you like what we're doing here on the Hiking Radio Network and want to see our shows continue, please consider supporting us with either a one-off or monthly donation. You will find the donate button on each of the Hiking Radio Network pages at hikingradionetwork.com. Also, don't forget to leave a review and share the show on your social media to help the show grow. Until next week, happy hanging, everyone.